Hey, what's going on, everybody? How is it hanging? It's Alexander Williamson here. Who do we got in chat? I waited just a moment for the other streams to wind up. We have a few that kind of overlap, so I wanted to make sure that folks were free. Jason Smith, Rachel Games. Let's see here. Mr. Gromby, Biscotti Nunya, what's up? Oh, you just messaged me, huh, Mr. Grumby? All right, guys. Well, welcome to the Light Chat. Thingamatorium, howdy. Jay Oliver's Guppies and Aquatics, howdy, howdy, howdy. So tonight probably won't be a super long live stream, but what I wanted to talk about a little bit was essentially what is highlight, and what do we mean when we say high-end lighting, or um, aquatic lighting for plants that's high-end? Because it's really kind of misleading. A lot of the stuff that's out there says highlight or says it offers highlighting, blah blah blah, but there's really not a firm definition. And also, do you really need highlighting per se, or what's important about all of this? So I kind of, we've gone into this in the past, but there's new products out right now, and because of that, we have also here an unboxing we can do, and it's actually, to tell you the truth, it's been done, and the unboxing is right here lighting my face, and it is right now the Twinstar 900 SA 3 version 3. And so basically it's what I want to talk about is any questions you guys have about lighting, but mostly I kind of want to talk about, we're going to look at a couple of my lights and compare the color, the penetration that they have, the kind of plants that I would kind of work with on there. And yeah, so I kind of want to go from there. Gazi Youth says, Alex, I'm setting up a 55-gallon. What's a good hang on the back filter for it? I like Marineland. I like Tetra. Also, Tetra has some cheap ones. Usually they go on sale every now and then. If you can, wait till Black Friday sales or after Thanksgiving holiday sales. And hopefully you can find something on sale for that. Even if you're not in the US, a lot of times you can use a VPN and then make it think you are and order something that way. I don't know if that works for you or not. I see your name is Gaza Youth. If you're in Gaza, that's a tall order. I mean, you probably have to use what you can get. Dee Dee, what's up? I'm never gonna live it down. Slex, Alex, Sex, Slex. Little housekeeping to do just now. I posted in the community tab the other night what we have coming up, hopefully in December, the episodes that are planned. Next Tuesday, we have Dan Connor speaking, who will be really interesting in that he's second generation fish farmer, grew up on a fish farm down in Florida, and basically he's a renegade. He's gone rogue. He's going off on his own, and he wants to kind of spill the beans, the dark side of what's wrong with some of the importing practices and things like that in the hobby, and what we can do to change those things or what to look for. So that should be a really good segment. And then also Lawrence Kent, hopefully in December, will be chatting with me about collecting fish in combat zones or war zones, how he's done that and gotten them back, and just navigating the madness that is that, and all the spots around the world that we just don't access because who would go there other than crazy people like Lawrence, in the most wonderful way. So other than that, we also have Anthony Mazerall, who is in charge of the Ornamental Fish Center in the Amazon Ornamental Fish charity, basically. And the other little housekeeping thing is that I finally, geez, after 3 weeks, got the testosterone that I needed to get. Since my head injury, I don't produce it, and literally was falling asleep mid-sentence. But I just got it about an hour ago and just took it. It takes a few days to actually build up in the system, but I apologize if I look a little haggard or tired. That is a real thing that's been going on, and it really has been wearing on me, and my eyes probably look a little puffy and tired and whatnot. But mentally, I'm here with you guys, and let's get this going. So let's just take a look at some of my lights. To be honest, you guys know what I look like. You don't need to see me. All right, so let's flip this all around, round. Flip it around. Is that the right one? Are we doing this? Have we seen this? Have we heard this? I guess we want that one. All right, so boom. What we basically got in here is the Twinstar Light 900S. Now, I was able to get these at a bit of a good price, and I got them for essentially a grow tank. So there's a new game in town as far as Twinstar Light goes, and Twinstar has been medium to highlight for a long time. Now they are definitely design oriented. They're into the acrylic legs or being mounted with stainless steel cables and looking very sleek, very modern and minimalist, almost brutalist in some of their look. But when you look at the actual light pattern, they actually have there's green, there's blue, there's red, and then there's soft white and warm white, or basically like a warmer Kelvin and a cooler Kelvin light. And they're kind of scattered and then behind a foggy glass thing. Now, this is the least expensive one, and I actually got this for $80 mailed to the house. This is the C series. So Twinstar C and Twinstar I'm going to talk about first. But by the way, nobody's sold me any of these for a discount to promote anything or whatever. And I'm going to kind of today, I think I'm going to weigh most of these lights kind of against the Fluval 3.0 Planted Plus, because for me, it's kind of the not the necessarily the gold standard, but it's definitely, I think, for your average hobbyist who's in it more so than just like their first tank or something, but they're actually in it. They want to maybe breed some fish, grow some plants, or they want to have the ability to grow, like their tank to grow and evolve over time. That is the most versatile and affordable meets the how do you put it, the performance meets the value of performance and price. So basically, Twin Stars, I've had them. One thing I would say that's a bummer is, one, they get warm, and that's not unusual for a lot of higher power lights. But the other thing they do is they don't have any settings, no adjustments. You can spend $10, $9.99, kind of odd, and get this, which just literally plugs in to the cord. You just insert it between the power strip cord and the cord that goes back here, and it is a power throttle and off and on kind of rocker or button switch essentially. So yeah, it's effective. Let me show you on this light next. So this lowest entry Twinstar, and we'll look at the 3.0 in a minute for reference too, but it's got the separated and kind of pastel colors under a foggy piece of plastic. that then kind of diffuses the light, and it gives you a fairly white light version of things. You don't really get any blue hues that aren't there, or any red hues or pink hues that aren't there. What you see is what you get. It's pretty neutral, right around 6,000 to 6,500 Kelvin. And we'll talk about Kelvin, lumens, par, wattage, and maybe a few other things in a minute here. But it's all beginning to mean less on its own. So any one of those ratings or numbers or values used to tell you quite a bit more, because you could kind of figure out, like with the old light bulbs that were fluorescent and things, you can kind of figure out that, like, if it's a 50-watt light and it's a T5 and it is this warm, or you know, or if just it's a T5 bulb with this, then you can kind of deduce, like, oh, it's going to take this much power and it will produce this much par. Well, now with LEDs, there's all sorts of things that come into play, like the lens, where the diodes are going through, all the way down to the wavelengths, obviously, of how warm or cool it is, to the par, or basically, par is the amount of photons that are landing in a set area every second, or, you know, in a given amount of time, how many photons or sheer energy is hitting a spot in your aquarium at each depth, basically. And with water, and for instance, like par, or the colors, the depth makes all the difference. And so it was always a little confusing to me, like, why you would spend so much money on certain lights that didn't have that great a par, but they had a good color spectrum for this or that. And I didn't quite get how all those things went together. So hopefully we can kind of talk a little bit about that. So this is the new, and it's already unboxed. I won't bore you with the unboxing, literally. I haven't opened this one yet, though. But this is the new Twinstar, and it has been designed literally to grow plants. This is a highlight light. It is comparable to the ADA or UNS pennant lights, kind of, that they hang with just one, you know, a foot or 2 foot long bar, and they hang down from the ceiling or whatnot, and or from a rod that you mount on your tanks, and they're for big rimless tanks, generally without a lid. Now, if you have a lid, that's going to change the dynamics of everything yet again. So we're going to proceed saying rimless and lidless. The rimless part's not that important, but it just has to do with how it attaches. But basically, so say this light here, the par, as it goes down, the top may have, and it has something around, I don't have the chart with me, but like 600 par in the first inch of water. And it also has a an angle of which the light can spread. And what's nice about a lot of the Twinstar lights is, if you look at my hand's over 6 inches. So this finger's 5 inches, this one, and my palm's about another 5 inches. So it's about 10 inches altogether from the tip of this finger to the base of my palm. And so you can see that it's probably 8 inches across, this light, like 7 to 8 inches across widthwise, which is really nice. Now, granted, it's because it's the bigger, the 90 centimeter across, but it gives you a big cast of light. So the fact that it's above the water about 8 inches, and that it's above, you know, so you can have it above the water line, which it's assuming is your tank, and then you can have your water a little lower or whatnot. So it's going to be about penetration that matters partially, and then also it's going to matter about the cast of the light. So how much does the light, here you can see my hand is fully illuminated. If I bring it forward out of the light but still under it, how far of an angle stays lit up? And with this light, it's pretty remarkable. if you see the distance I have here, I have over a foot distance and it's still lit up all the way over here. So the cast on this light is really good. So what you look at when you're looking at reviews and things, yeah, 600 par, you could get a suntan right here. Now, that being said, 600 par sounds like, wow, that's a crazy grow light, you know, for like herb or something. But you go down 12 inches and it's 160 par. So water really kicks the power out of par. So when you're looking at a par rating, you can get all into it and learn about it more. We could do a whole hour-long talk about it, but I'm going to leave it at that. Basically, it measures the sheer amount of photons hitting a surface in a specific area. So it's done with a little meter that you put in different spots, and then you would map out how the tank is lit. And this one happens to cast a nice strong par of 600, an inch under the water here, and about 500 and then 400 as you spread out in the course of a 90p or 90u rimless tank, which is essentially just under 2 feet deep or width wise, and then the length, as they usually call it, is 3 feet even. The depth is about almost 2 feet also. So it's almost a square over here, just 2 inches shy of a square. But at the very bottom, if you want to have a carpeted aquarium, you need to have a lot of par hitting the bottom. And so 600 may be great up here and it may let you grow red root floaters that are really pretty or whatever. But you know, if the par is down to like 10 down here, then you're just going to grow moss. And same with if you have floating plants. Do you want to grow through the plants? You know, I have frequently will have duckweed or floating plants around. I like stronger lights because I can grow them under them. So even though it's going through these and the wavelengths and everything get altered, your easier plants or low light plants will still be able to grow with a highlight underneath lilies and underneath duckweed and water lettuce and red root floaters and all that stuff, which is nice. Now, the other way we can kind of measure this whole thing is we can also measure it by Kelvin. And Kelvin is essentially the wavelength interval and height of the wavelength. If you're actually looking at visible light on a spectrum, you know, it has peaks and valleys in a waveform. And the lower end of that is near the ultraviolet and purple. And then as you go through the prism of the rainbow, the higher end of that is the infrared, or the reddest tones. And when we're looking at lights, most are somewhere between 4,000 and 7,000 for plants. Sometimes you'll see a 7,500, 7,500 Kelvin rating. Sometimes you'll see a 3,000, but for the most part, they're kind of in between that 4 or 5 and 7,000 number. So the reason that's important, other than just how does it look to the eye, you know, is what is going to grow. And a lot of that's determined by the color of diodes. But not only that, it matters which diodes have how much power in them. So how much par is each diode. So you may have red diodes, but if you've ever been in a room with a red or black light or purple light, you know, a different color light, not a true UV light, but like a light with a purple wrap on it, you know that the same 60-watt light bulb, it looks dim in that room because those wavelengths don't work the same way as white light does. And so, like on a cloudless day, sunny day at the equator, they say that, you know, the middle range or the true white balance par, or not par, but Kelvin would be something around 6,000 to 6,500. And what happens is in the fall or in other times a year, that number gets put more towards the red side, and that causes plants to fruit or flower. And that's exactly how, if you guys saw it a little bit ago, I had a bud growing on this Buthophilandra. Well, if we want the plants to come up out of the water and grow immersed and flower and make seeds and stuff like that, then you want red lighting, which is going to be a Kelvin rating specific thing. Now, if you want it to grow vegetatively and you want the plants to just grow for height and bushiness and density, then you want more blue light or greenish tones and blue tones. And it's kind of always a balance when you get into the high-end products of which of those tones do you want and how much power do you want to each. Now, with Twinstar, they have looked in labs and they have optimized to what it would be to grow. They've taken about 50 species of plants, they've put them in tanks that are about 24 inches to, or say 12 to 24 inches deep, and they've put them about 3 feet wide, put the light above it, mounted at various heights, and then they have charts that you can find on how strong that light is. Now, the stronger the light is power-wise, not in its spectrum or whatnot, watts, doesn't mean that much anymore because there's all these new efficiencies that are going on. So yes, there are limitations by wattage. Like you're not going to have a 5-watt LED creating this, but you could have, like this one is 80 watts when it's up all the way. Whereas old lights, I mean, that used to be a light bulb for an average room, just to light your average room, an incandescent light bulb. So the LEDs are far more effective with the energy. The little diodes are. Now, what I don't like about this Twinstar, even though it is designed for optimal growth of plants, it's set right at the border of vegetative and fruiting growth. So it has a lot of red compared to old Twin Stars. If you look at the other Twin Star, it has some red, but white is the bigger thing. And so when you look at your plants and animals, you've still got a white light base. Now, with this one, you actually kind of have a bit of pink to the hue. Finnex stingrays are another great example of, if you've ever been in the aquarium co-op or a local fish store, a lot of times they'll use that specific light because it has a lot of pink or red wavelength to its light spectrum. And it makes cherry barbs and plants with red and stuff look really good. Now, the other thing is that as you go deeper, you lose color in the water. And so even though we can see it fine through the glass here and we can still see pink, if I were to cut this plant and bring it to the surface, that pink and red would be more vivid than what we're seeing here. We're cheating a little bit because it's still lit from above and from the room out here, and we're only this far from it. We're not the whole depth of the tank from it. But if we were to look down on it in a real deep tank, let's go in the other room actually for this effect, and we'll look at some of the other brands that I have here too. We'll turn them on one by one. I've got them all off and waiting. So in here, in this tank, which is 2.5 feet deep, you actually lose the color. Now, this is a Fluval 3.0, and you can see that it's got red, blue, yellow, and it's got the yellow are more of kind of an off-white. It's more of that indoor lighting that used to be. And then there's also a magenta or kind of a lavender or pink color also on some of the diodes right there. That is the red in combination with the yellowy orange. So pink and yellowy orange. It's more of a CMYK or cyan, magenta, uh, and white kind of a thing in here, and turquoise going on than the actual RGB. It doesn't really matter in that sense. It all combines to give you a Kelvin rating that's somewhere on that continuum. And this light is rather neutral too, if you keep it to the factory settings. Now, that being said, you can have it all the way down to the blue, you can have it all the way to the red, and that's what I love about the Fluval Planted Plus 3.0 is on your phone, and I'm using my phone to film right now. You can get on the app and you can change it. It's got a timer built in. You can turn down the power to each color, and you can change it all the way to a massively red spectrum where it looks like a brothel in Amsterdam and everything's red. You can't even make out the green in the tank if you want. Or you can go all the way blue, like obviously here's another 3.0, and it's chilling doing its thing, and everything in between. So basically, if you want your plants to just vegetatively grow, dense, bushy, and well, you can turn it up all the way, especially if you have a deep tank. But as the light has to penetrate the depth of the tank, we lose certain colors first, and we tend to lose the reds, the yellows, and you're left with blues and greens and grays or black and white kind of scale. And that effect is actually noticeable in a tank like this. Like the green down here is a lot more muted than when we have the light right up on it, or when it's up near the surface and the green's super bright. Now, I know this tank's dirty. So let's look at another one here. Here we have a Hydro light, and this is the newest Hydro light. I like this one a lot too, in that it's like your classic store lights, big box store. The Planted Fluval 3.0 is available now in I think it's PetSmart under another name. I can't remember the exact verbiage for it, but it is being sold now. There was another one called the Aqua Sky that was a little different, but this should be familiar to everyone by now in the hobby, which is your red and your red and your blue diodes, and then true white. And to get plants to grow low and mid light, that's perfect. Now, if you're growing something special that you're trying to flower or that needs the whole spectrum of light, this is not truly a whole spectrum light. And there's actual radiation that falls within a certain wave frequency that's just simply not there. And certain plants, to color up with the anthocyanins and the colors and the photosynthetic cellular activity, they need to actually have cues from those lights. So that's why the 3.0 is a big advantage, is you can look that info up for your specific plant, dial it in, and you're good to go. And now this Hydro, I think it's all right. I mean, it's got a timer built in where you can set it to 4 hours, 6 hours, or 8 hours, I believe. Maybe it's 12 hours, depending on what light you select here. And then the other thing you can do is you can set it to just blue and red. So in theory, this is no white light. This would still grow a lot of plants. Now, the problem is, though, this isn't bright enough red and blue to truly grow plants. If you've ever seen an herb or marijuana grow farm, you may have seen lights like this. In fact, I've got a light up here that I was going to show you guys just for this purpose. And I like this option. In nobody that I know has made a video advocating this, and so I might, hold on, let me get it unclipped. There we go. All right, so I might have to actually make the video myself, but so say we turn on a light we don't want to spend the money on a Planet 3.0, but let's say we have another light like this one that is, so that's just the white light. So now we do have some other wavelengths in that white light, but we don't have a true full spectrum because the white light isn't a true compound of other things. The diode that glows is not a rich enough light. If you put this through a prism, you won't get the nuances and brightness that you would get of a true white light. In fact, you'll get some yellow, some blue, some red, and green, like RGB, like a TV. And it just tricks the human eye. But here with this, it mimics pretty well a full spectrum. And that's just because you've got your red, blue, and then the white kind of acts as a yellow or green if you're thinking in terms of RGB and the human brain. So let me turn this one on too while we're at it. This is what I was talking about that's important though too, is this is mostly low light plants. This tank is only 12 inches deep. It's a 20 long. But I can grow any low to mid light plant, even under all of this duckweed, lily pads, and everything. Still, this much light is penetrating it. And yes, you'll see that light wavelengths are getting filtered out. So down here, we're just seeing, and in this case, it's skewed. I know I just said yellows doesn't get seen under deep water very well. Something like 3 meters, the yellow's gone. And what is it, 4 to 6 meters, the red starts to go. By 6, it's gone. But regardless, that's important for your plants. So that's why we get an overreaction and we have extra red or extra blue, is because as it goes down, you lose more. But it's not always pumping the same amount of energy or light. In here, we've got blue. It's kind of hard. Let's see if we can. Same thing going on, though, is I'm growing through moss and duckweed and just low light stuff. But it serves this serves its purpose fine doing so. It can have a blue mode on, and it can have a white light mode. But this is a very cool light. This is a very cool in Kelvin rating light, and it produces a decent amount of par. This is the little Aquarium pennant planted light or planted grow light. And oh, red gets filtered out first, then orange and yellow. Thank you so much. Hey, we've got right here at Amazon Research Center for Ornamental Fish, we've got Anthony Mazeral. And so I really appreciate that he's in here and he's catching these things for me. But he's who I was saying I'm hoping to speak with soon. And later tonight, I'm actually going to speak with him and his wife. By the way, if you haven't checked out the Amazon Research Center for Ornamental Fish, they do really cool stuff. They have public lectures where you can actually learn from PhDs or grad students or experts in the field of different ecological aspects of the hobby and of the whole ecosystem and biotope that's down there. And it's available for you to watch, and that's free. I mean, it'd be nice if we all could kick in, you know, even just enough for coffee for a few days, whatever it is you can spare, you know. But I love it when organizations do that, and it's definitely why I want to give him some time on the show to explain what it is they're doing, what they do with the money, and you know, all those details. So let's see here. The light up here, the Fluval 3.0, you can see it's growing red root floaters really well. It's a pretty full spectrum light. And this one too is the best way to light a 4-foot long, 18-inch deep, 28-inch tall tank. In my opinion, I would do 2 of the Fluval 48-inchers. Is what I'd probably do, and put them side by side. The cast on these, even if you elevate them, I put them on my hang off the back filter to give it about 8 inches off the water. But even so, remember the Twinstar when I put my hand under it? There's no light within even, like, so this is only as wide as 1 finger, Remember, the other one was as wide as almost my whole palm and finger. And already under here, I mean, look at the cast. It's gone. If we can line this up better, it's gone within 3 or 4 inches of that edge. So it doesn't cast nearly as well as the Twinstar. Now, if you were to look at an even higher end light that I don't happen to own, but the Kessel light, they have one called the Kessel that has a very specific beam of light. And so it has a very high par, lots of energy being imparted, and you don't really fiddle too much with the spectrum of the light or anything. So there's no simulating a sunset or, this is what it looks like on the equator versus in the northern latitudes or southern latitudes, things like that. And no emulating lightning storms. All that stuff is a little kitschy. There may be some people trying to breed some very specific fish where that can be helpful. But honestly, most scientific work that I have come across and or read about simply says that, the brightness of the tank is more critical than the, overall Kelvin rating, or the, there's this much red, there's that much blue, and it's a warmer tank, and then in the afternoon it turns to this. No, fish are more all or nothing, or maybe like all medium nothing, and a lot of them just simply need a shady area, a dark area of the tank to reproduce. They don't need synthetic lightning, things like that. You're probably not going to trick them, as far as anything I've seen from that. But if it makes you happy and you want a disco in your tank, then that's a whole other story, because that is a very real element to all of this. I mean, does he look good to you guys? He's got a rainbow of color on him. This is a haplochromous collection point Malungu. And the male, if he comes up again, he's got lots of reds and bronzes and iridophores and things. And that's where I think the diodes that are very pointed, so to speak, that have lenses and things, you start to see the yellows and the blues. You see all the colors in there. Same with the female here. You get the kind of bronze and green on her head really well, even though those are kind of contradicting colors. And then here's blue, for that matter, and it still looks really good. So that's kind of a neutral Kelvin palette. But plants, on the other hand, they're very sensitive to Kelvin, and they can tell a whole lot by that. So what I was saying, though, is if you can't buy one of these Fluval 3.0s because they are $100 to $200, $220 or so, I think, depending on the size you get, and the size is going to determine the par and the watts quite a bit. Watts are going to go up by size, obviously, because you're covering more surface area, but par also, because you're adding more diodes or light bulbs or whatever it may be, you're adding more sources of light over the whole course of the thing. So if you were to add up the light altogether, that's not always the best measurement of, how is my light, or how good is that light, because you could have a Kessel that has a very strong light that can penetrate 3 feet down into the tank, and it reflects the water. See how you can see the ripples? When you have a very pointed beam of light, and the photons are packed very densely, they reflect and the ripples off the top of the water very well, and people like that effect. But at the same time, then you're going to have a dark tank elsewhere, or you'll have this kind of alien abduction, tractor beam spotlight, light down the center thing going on. So what I was going to say is this light, so say you only could afford a light that doesn't even have the red and blue setting, it just has a neutralish white setting. You could get, say, a 6,000 Kelvin light, and then what you could do for your plants is you could buy, and this was not even $12 at Home Depot. This is a blue, it's hard to tell, but it's a blue and pink light, and it's LED, and the diodes are set just for growing. If you look at it, it's still got the tag on it. I left it on thinking that I'd show you guys. Come on, focus. Wattage is a little high for how small it is, but 13 watts. And then you've got the blue and the red. It tells you how many nanometers it is, which can kind of be converted into Kelvin. But basically, when you look at a plant growth chart, I'll show you guys one in a moment here. There's kind of a sweet spot in the spectrum of where you want your growth to occur. But this thing has an operation voltage of 120 and wattage of 13. So it doesn't use a ton of energy, but a little more than I would expect, considering this is 32 watts for this whole thing, and it's bright. And then also it tells you that the Kelvin rating would be 2,000 and 9,000 respectively of the two red and blue diodes, but they're in combination, they're going to come out somewhere mixed in the middle with a vegetative grow amount. Now, if you could tweak the red on this light, that would be even better. And then you could decide if you want a flower. But that's really more important for if you want to flower, say, Anubias or Bucephalandra. Once you get most aquatic plants out of the water, they'll flower for you without that. So let me show you my ultra cheap option, and the other measurement that we haven't talked about, but it's actually pretty useful. And forgive me for not brushing up before this stream on what the technical specs are on it, but is Lumens. Why can't I find? Oh, sorry, my light here was all wrapped up in itself, like me. So this light up here, this was $15, and it's 4 feet long. The spectrum, terrible. I mean, it doesn't make anything look very good. You can see the ram's horn snails, even though they're this lovely white with a neon pink flesh, and I sell these, they look terrible in this light. They look awful. Wild bettas that I have, they look terrible. But it'll grow duckweed, it'll grow guppy grass, it'll grow sawassertang and kabamba, Anubias just fine, Bucephalandra just fine. And more than that, if you just need to see what you're doing for like breeding, spawning, or warehousing your fish, then it's fine for that. Has no settings, nothing, no timer, but 15 bucks. And then I got that other red light that I can put over it if I did want a warmer feel. Now, the other lights that I have handy are, we've got a Aquarium light, and this one is real low budget. It's very there's red diodes that have a little bit of red, a little bit of blue, and a little bit of green, all in the same little area. And this originally or sorry, this is not the Aquarium. This is the Fluval light sky one originally. Now, the problem with these, and they've got new generations out since I bought this one 6 years ago, but this was the first one that could do lightning storms, and you could pick any one of these colors and have the lights light up and be those colors. You could replicate a full moon, or, you know, sun or rain, or lightning storms and all that stuff, and have presets. It's more of a gimmick, honestly. Like I said, if you're one of those people who's very, very careful, and you are looking at the weather charts, and you're going to wait for a 30 millibar drop in the barometer, in the barometric pressure locally, and you want to put the lightning on, and then maybe have the TDS decrease by doing a bunch of water changes and the temperature decrease, I don't know, maybe the lightning and some dim lights could help. But for my money, it's probably not going to help any more than if you just left the tank semi-dim and did the water change at the low millibar thing. But all of these features, I think the most useful is the timer built in. It's also sometimes nice just for human creature comforts to ramp up and ramp down. As far as fish are concerned, it may stress them a little bit to have lights off and then on, but they're not that they shouldn't be that high strung that that's gonna like set them over the edge. This is another one that's an early kind of had some controls to it, and this one is the Aquarium one that I was thinking of. This one's a piece of garbage. Don't buy this. I'm just gonna throw it out there. This is like the nice one at the box stores, oftentimes, before the Fluval ones came online, came available. That is, you could always get them online, but this allows me to change the hues of color a little bit. I can turn the white off, and then I can make it orange if I wanted to. Now, you can probably see this blinking. That's another aspect of LED lighting that we don't always talk about, but I think this could be important. So at this wavelength, it's a low wavelength, and the spacing is different than at blue or at, where do we have it, at pink, where we've got the white in there too. What's happening is LEDs actually are turning off and on about 200 times a second. And because of the way digital filming works or cameras work, there's a phenomena, you can Google it. There's a lot of really great scientific videos out there that will explain it in about 10 minutes and really cool stuff about it. But it's called the rolling shutter effect, like a shutter on a camera. And basically your camera is scanning every, like, by the hundredth of seconds or thousandth of seconds. It's making a picture by creating pixels and info that it loads like words in a book or a text. And if that happens, and the light is blinking at just the right frequency, you can actually see that. So that's what that's about, is it syncs up, and it's kind of an optical illusion, like when you wear plaid on TV and it starts blinking and looking annoying. It's also because of rolling shutter and because there's slight movement going on. Now, I have an old Twinstar light over here. I have another Aquarium light here and a Night Crew light right here. Now, the Night Crew, I think, are pretty good, and so are beams work as far as medium to low light. But when it comes to highlight, it's a little hard to find good stuff unless you really spend the good money. I mean, to get good stuff, you got to spend some money. To look at fish and they're pretty, it's not that expensive. You can get plenty of different stuff. Like I said, this is the Hydroponic. This is going to be a black water tank, so there's going to be a lot of yellows to the water anyways. So the blue and red thing kind of just they're kind of a washout in the end anyways. But if I wanted to see all the nuanced light lavender tones in these fish, then I should put a light on there like the Twinstars, or like a very neutral light on there. Now, that being said, everything that I said, another measurement that we look at with lighting is lumens, and that's like the power, the amount of energy going into it. And maybe someone knows in here, but I don't recall offhand. Is it the radiation energy, or is that the electrical energy, or is it something about the value of light reflected? I don't recall how they measure the power, but just to give you an example, like this light might be 30 lumens or 60 lumens because it's only a few rows of white diodes, whereas these larger Fluval 3.0 lights that can grow, that are considered full spectrum, they end up having lumens somewhere between 3 and 4,000 for the bigger ones. Blue Ice Aquatic says 6,000 Kelvin has the white and not yellow. Yeah, definitely. So in any case, there's a lot of ways to do this. I mean, I've even run the LED lights that are garbage. They're just straight garbage. They're little diodes that are white, and they'll light up a tank though. And they may not penetrate deep into the water. They may not help you turn anything from vegetative to fruiting, but they'll show you your fish. To me, where the money is, you can't beat how something looks to your eye. By the way, this is an Archeon light or Archaea light. Archaea, AFA, I believe is who made those originally. And UNS makes some lights too. I've got a UNS light over there. I'm not going to bother going through them all because you're looking at them all through a camera too, through a video. And it's just not going to be, it's not going to inform you that much because you're going to see it through your screen, whatever that is. So where I have plants though, like Anubias, like Pinto, Anubias, or variegated plants that literally don't have the chlorophyll needed to support their own life. They need to count on the leaves that do have it rather than the ones that don't. That's where you need to have a specific light frequency and a specific light's intensity. You know, same thing with when you're trying to get reds in plants. There's several reasons for reds, and one can be color of because of the time of the year and because of how light is entering the atmosphere and becoming more scattered towards the end of the day or through the end of the year. It's got more atmosphere to go through, and because of that, our eye sees more of the red light than the blues. Whereas at 12 noon in summer, the light is very neutral, and we see the blue because it's the only light that is scattered throughout the particles in the sky, or at least it's the strongest scattered to the human eye. That doesn't mean there aren't a bunch of other colors going on. It's just that's what the human eye has evolved to see it as. Now, as far as the plants that go, though, here, ADHD Aquatics has a little post here that's pretty helpful, which is candlelight gives off a dim glow light that is equivalent to 1,800 to 2,000 Kelvin, which is sunrise or sunset. So those warmer colors or yellower colors, like red and yellow and orange colors. And then sunset 3,000, and then daylight 3,000 to 4,000, 6,000 to 7,000 is blue sky or the the intense middle of the day type thing. And 6,500 for the aquarium has kind of been the mid standard of neutral, kind of like 7 pH is our neutral. 6,500 or somewhere between 6,000 and 7,000 is kind of our home base for, yeah, it'll grow all the plants. There's probably a few exceptions, but it'll grow them. But that you lose, like I said, you lose some of the wavelengths as you go deeper. And that's why the deeper you go, you're not going to want carpeting plants deep in your tank, for instance. Yeah, definitely not. So, yeah, so that was helpful to have that thing there. And, that says nothing, though, of how much energy is being imparted into the plants. So that's why we also have the PAR rating and the lumens rating. This Twinstar light has around 6,000 lumens when it's full power. So it's really bright. And like you could see the cast on it, even when I'm not anywhere under the light, there's a whole bunch of tank away from me, and it's cast, even though we saw with the Fluvals, they got dark like this close to the light. This has a really good cast. And so that's another thing you're paying for, is either the lens that causes that, which would break up what's already there, or the fact that you've actually got diodes and other things that are angled differently is another way to do it too. But I would say that this light, I really love it for what I've seen in 2 weeks its ability to do with growing. It has caused the plants to think it's the end of their season or that it's the peak of summer, so to speak, and that they need to produce sunscreen. And in the form of anthocyanins and carotenoids and all that kind of good stuff, it actually, the leaves actually turn color, and it's kind of in one way so that there's not tissue damage. You can literally get lights so powerful. I had an Odyssey light that was for saltwater, and I used it on freshwater, and I literally burnt my plants to a yellow crisp, burnt holes in the leaves within 2 days. I mean, within an 8 hours on in 2 days, it had killed the plants, certain plants. Anything that was high up or anything that was a low light plant was dead. Now, the carpeting was great down low and everything, but as a well-rounded system, it wasn't gonna work. And that one was 320 watts. Hey, there's one of my little leopard frog plecos saying hello back there. But the problem I have with this is, yes, it's growing everything very bushy and nice. It's a little too warm for my taste when I look at it. It kind of has a pink cast. And also what's interesting is because of the beveled sides on the rimless tank, it's got a blue and a red cast, which none of the former, the other lights like this by Twinstar, they actually give you a full rainbow in their cast. And I know this is a green wall, so it's kind of hard to tell. But when they use all the pastel mixes in combination, you get a rainbow. When they do this, you get the blue, the red, and then you get this weird yellow that comes off at another angle. So it's just a matter of how light is being bent in optics, I'm sure, but it's all going to be subjective to what you like at the same time. And if you're spending $250 or $300, or I mean, there's companies out there where you can spend $500 on an aquarium light easily. In fact, I think the ADA pendant light is $899. And yes, it's been optimized to grow your carpeting plants and to grow anything, but once you're growing immersed stuff too, the other kind of joke or misnomer in the hobby, people will buy stuff and they'll be like, well, is this going to help with my plants once they breach the water and yada yada? Well, once your plants breach the water, they don't have the resistance of the water to like causing such a precipitous decline in light intensity. And so, just like we said, every 6 inches, the lumens or the par was being cut more than in half with a lot of these lights. The same, or what's true also is that once they're above water, they can also get the atmospheric CO2. So it's like they're being infused with CO2. I don't know if it shows up in this live stream, but can you guys make out that there is a slight reddish or pinkish kind of sunset hue to this tank versus this tank, which has more of a green blue hue? I don't know if you guys can see that. Let's see if we can get them both in here. And I know the plants, there's some more red plants in here, so that kind of throws things off. But that's what I noticed. And it's also interesting how it really lights up the joints here. The blue just glows on that UNS. So, and that's because they do their 45-degree bevel on their tanks there, where they join them, and it's more surface area for the glue to hold, so it's stronger with this 12 millimeter glass or whatever it is on the sizes 90 centimeters and up. But to me, yeah, it's very modern and slimline, but I don't even have a canister filter on it right now because when we moved, the person helping us move broke it and also broke the CO2, and that's why we've got a line running all over the place for the CO2 on this one. So it's kind of, I don't know, it's kind of a non-starter with me, the aesthetics of it needing to be perfect. But if you're somebody who, you've got a very modern house, or, you're into architecture, or it is kind of the feature in your house, I mean, the nice thing about this light, if you had redfish, like my bloodfin tetras, their tails look like they're glowing red. The embers look really good. And depending on your Kelvin, you grow different plankton too, or not plankton, algae rather. So if you're having a lot of problems with, for instance, filamentous algae, you can look online and see what frequencies are those most commonly associated with. Maybe you want to steer clear of that Kelvin range. But as I was saying, in the later season, your plants actually get so much light that they say, you know what, I need to add some sunscreen, or basically I can tone down my chlorophyll, and so they let these reds, these anthocyanins, these carotenoids into, and lycopene and keratin, they let them in, and athaptascan, they let them into their leaves, and it changes the colors. And as long as they're getting that light, that's that intensity and that slightly summerish wavelength, they'll continue to do this. However, if you just bombard them with a ton of light, they'll stay squat and dense because they don't need to reach for the light. So there's actually a happy medium where if your light's super strong, you can either burn them or you can just cause them to they're going to be happy. They're going to grow steadily, but they're going to stay pretty squat because they don't need to reach for anything. Whereas if you have a light that's almost as strong as high light per se, a lot of plants then are going to be able to want to reach for it like this one is. So that also can really determine how you plant in your tank. Is your very low light plants, your cypress helfri, your kabamba, all that stuff, you want to put that as far from the light as it can be, because then you'll grow it quick, and this is enough light that with fertilizers and light, it's still going to grow dense and bushy no matter what. Now the Anubias, this probably shouldn't be directly under the center of the light or anything, because what happens is the algae will just outcompete the cells in the plant, and these plants can hang on to these these leaves and stuff. They can hang on to them for 6 months to a year, and then that's a lot of time for algae to get a foothold. So yeah, it's just kind of an issue that can pop up. Also, you get some fish that really like my Styphodon gobies. They live in creeks near the equator in the Pacific, and they love hanging out in the highlight. My Corydoras, not so much. My Autocinclus, not so much. My Darter Tetras, not at all. In fact, I'm going to move them probably because this tank's too bright for them, even with the lowest power Twinstar. Now, for me though, for gazing at my tank, this is the best light to me. Are the Twinstar EAs and the Twinstar Cs. Those product lines, you can actually get. I mean, can you see the sparkle on the boost? I mean, you've got enough full spectrum that it twinkles. It looks nice. You've also got enough light that even on live stream where all the lights vary or the colors all screwed up, like your Bacopa starts to turn red. Your anything you have, your Ovalis, Ludwigia ovalis, for instance, starts to get very orange and peachy and pink rather than it usually looks like this. See where it's not getting the light? Usually looks yellow and green or green and green. And so it can be really helpful. Now, at the same time, there's some plants like Triflora here that turns black. Stargrass can do that too when it gets too much light, and it can also get speckling, these little spots, almost like freckles. Now here, that's because of algae, but that can happen too. So there's a few things to consider if you're really going to go full plant nerd. But none of these things matter at all if you don't have your macro and micronutrients figured out, your nitrogen cycle all worked out, your substrate, and if you're going to use infused CO2, which if you're talking highlight, there's no point really in having an actual highlight like over 150 par, over 3,000 lumens. There's no reason to have one that I can think of if you're not injecting CO2 and using the estimative index with FERTs and things like that. For me though, like I needed to get very strong light all the way to the bottom for this red Aponogeton crispus, this new variety, and I want it to send up a flower so that I can get some seeds from it. And so that was another like reason, the whole reason why I bought this light in particular. Same with the Logonandra Boldi silver powder. This plant is one that needs kind of a stronger lighting in it. But that's kind of where I wanted to wrap things up, if that makes any sense. I hope it makes some sense. And obviously, I'm not going off any notes or anything here right now. And I feel like I could have gone off that and gotten all nerdy, all up in your business, but I didn't want to take it quite that far tonight. I figured I could upload some scalpel rather than chainsaw precision lighting videos where we go over lumen, par, Kelvin, all that stuff exactly, and what's what. But yeah, let's see here. Do I use Easy Green? I do not right now. I have used it. I enjoyed it when I was running very low stocked tanks because it has nitrates in it and it has a little bit of phosphates in it, I believe. And for me, I run hot tanks in the sense of nitrates. My fish are usually very dense in my tanks, and so they produce a lot of nitrates, nitrites, ammonia, and so I don't need that. So what I do is I generally lack potassium for the plants that I'm growing. Hold on, let me get this squared away so I can talk to y'all. We can have a fireside chat for a little while here. And then, you know, Bentley Pasco is going tonight too. Plus, I've got to talk with the wonderful folks at the ornamental fish or the Amazon Ornamental Fish Research Center. But let's get a couple questions going on. Does it affect shrimp? Yeah, I mean, nitrates, there isn't a set level that kills or harms all fish or this fish or that fish necessarily, but it makes them prone to a lot more illness from what I've seen. There might be new research on that. In fact, I think what's his name? The fish or what is his handle? Stephen, the biologist. I think he was saying he did some studies at his university where they were actually finding that nitrate levels over 50 parts per million had a pretty significant, like cut the life of fish in half. Well, I'm glad, Diane, that you liked the stream. ICU called Aqua Garden Zen. I'm sorry. Yeah, I mean, if you set up your tank right, you shouldn't have to fertilize a ton. I mean, the goal for me is to feed good enough food that's well-rounded enough for a diverse food web that already exists in my tanks. I like adding, you know, amphipods and like little seed shrimps and scuds and having little even like little nematodes like planaria, or well, planaria is not a nematode, but like that, like little harmless worms, detritus worms and things like that, water fleas. I like having that stuff in my aquariums, and I think it helps build up the nutrients through the food web. So maybe shrimp eat that, and then maybe I have some fish and I let them eat the baby shrimp. At the same time, anything that I add to the water, bacteria, fungi, archaea are all going to be breaking that down and either disassembling it elementally or chemically, or they'll be concentrating it. Some fungi and molds and things, for instance, can consolidate heavy metals like mercury or lead, and you can actually get sick from eating too many of them. So, I mean, the point is, though, that if it's in your tank, if it's in there in general, and you've set it up for success with the substrate being a rich substrate that's diverse with life forms of all types, especially your cleanup crew and your detrivore microfauna, then really feeding quality food and letting them eat what's in the tank, be that algae, plants, or little fish, little shrimp, you really don't need to add that much fertilizer. However, a lot of people don't want to do all that. It is a lot more work, and you do have to find those balances for you. Um, would you suggest a light for a 28-inch tall tank? I think that the Fluval 3.0, if you can afford it, that's the best light on the market right now, I would say. You don't have to buy a timer, you don't have to buy a power throttle or anything like that. And you can do different things, like if you're trying to get rid of algae, you could try to do a certain wavelength, or do a blackout or blue out or whatever you want to call it. So there's that. Dragon layer, yeah, good point. UVB and UVA is filtered out by glass. Yeah, anything that's in its way. I mean, all light is, I suppose, too. Mr. Gromby, what was your question? What happens if you take your light and put it in the side of your tank near the substrate? Is that your question? We've talked about this a few times, and it's kind of a cool effect, but generally you can get things to kind of vine or crawl a little bit. However, if you have a light above as well, they're still going to go for that light over the other light, if it's worth getting energy, if it has energy to gain. It doesn't really do the math and say this light's stronger than that light. From what I've seen, it will go because it's used to growing upwards with the light. However, you can kind of bonsai things by putting that light low down like that on the side of the tank. Long term, I've never seen the consequences of it. I'd love to read about it, but I've actively looked for studies and haven't been able to find much on that. So I'm going to skip the Moscow question, the Guppy question, because I can, if you have another question, or if you have a question after the stream, you can comment and someone will get you, or I'll get you, or you can join our Facebook group. But I'm just going to keep it about lights because Bentley needs to, he's streaming starting now. So I'm winding this down a little bit now. Barnabas Roy, what do you think about Chiros or LED starlights? Chiros, I think, are okay. I like them. There's a few little one-off doe aqua lights too that I like. And I think it just depends. Do you need a light for your plants, or do you need a light for viewing, or do you need a light for your aesthetic of your modern design, for that matter, for the whole look and vibe of your room and your aquarium and the lighting in your room? I mean, do you use your tank to read next to, and that's what's important. So depending on all those things, I have different lights that I would say I like for different reasons. But in the end, I really like the Fluval 3.0 because you can customize every diode's light intensity and have a timer put on it and throttle the power to each. And in the end, I mean, having those three abilities would be very easy to integrate into all the lights that exist. It's very simple wiring, and doesn't require, like, you know, gigs of RAM or anything. It's a little teeny chipset probably that would do it. And I think we'll see more of that, more of the Bluetooth stuff, but I also like how you can chain the lights together on Bluetooth. Hydra I also like, and Night Crew I also like for the lower cost, but kind of medium value lights also. Pyrian Wang says, I just got a pallet of hydroponic NA lights at auction. Do you have any experience with those in aquariums? Thinking about using them for a 300-gallon maybe. NA. Are you talking sodium lights? Like real grow lights? Because there's you know, there's also like what do they call them? Nickel and halogena, and I mean there's a whole bunch of them that are for growing kind of flowering orchids or fruiting plants, that's where those get used. I don't think the Twinstars are a better budget option, although the Twinstar C series or EA is kind of their light that gets into the starting to be highlight. You can carpet with that. With the C, they say you can carpet, but really you can carpet about 8 inches deep. After that, it kind of gets scraggly from my experience. Maybe there's ways around that. I'm not saying what I know is complete or correct, but that's what I've learned from trying it many times, is that the Twinstar, with the Twinstar, go with the EA. It's a little more money, but it's a lot more light for bang for your buck. But at the same time, it's not going to be growing your blood vomit or your I'm trying to think of something that needs a ton of light, but I'm struggling. Why do all fish tubers worry about running over each other? They're getting to be a lot now. It's inevitable. Well, Bentley's my friend. I mean, he's in my fish club and all that stuff. How to tell if a light is too bright? If your plants are turning yellow, or if your fish are hiding, I would say that's too bright. Or if your roommates and or yourself is like, oh, my eyes are sore, and that there's not really a too bright as long as your plants are thriving. So yeah. All right, let's see. So the other thing is I have a series that I already did called Let There Be Light. And it's 3 live streams that are all like an hour and a half long, where I go through lights and I rank them. It's a few years old now, but I wanted to kind of add to that series tonight the stuff I left out about the new Twinstar, because now they're on generation 3, and that diode configuration that we saw with the red in the center and the pinkish tinge, that's what's new to the equation. But if you really want to get a full rundown where I researched it, had the charts handy of where the cutoffs were and what each product was, watch that series under my playlists of live stream playlists, and it's called Let There Be Light. So Let There Be Light, comparing blah, 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 part 1, 2, and 3. I like the reason I picked Twinstar. I'll end on this note, and if you have questions, I'll try to get them in the comments later. But I like how thin it is. I like that it's pretty energy efficient, and I've found in the past that I don't have to play with any settings, and I get very colorful plants. So like I don't need to do much, just minimal fertilizer. I don't have to do an element by element estimative index type thing. I can just use liquid, basically any all-in-one that doesn't have iron or nitrogen in it will work for me for what I do. And then sometimes I add a little extra potassium and then a little bit of iron. And that's what works for me. Now I have a TDS of 20 to 30 out of the tap usually. So that's a little different. But I like the Twinstar just because it's a set it and forget it type light. It looks good with the rimless tanks for company and stuff. It just looks very clean. And also the look of the light, I just like how it looks. And that's why I wanted to kind of talk about this new one, saying that I don't love it. If I had a bunch of red and orange fish in there, maybe I would. Or if I had more black stone in there to kind of counter it, maybe I would. But right now, it's just slightly a bit too sunsetty, off spectrum. The Kelvin's a little off for me. That being said, the way I plant the tank too, if I put stuff that's going to absorb the light very heavily right in the center, and plants that are going to be red anyways, it may totally, I may feel the opposite. It may give it a boost. But when you go into Aquarium Co-op, Corey sells all his Ember Tetras, red mollies and platies and swordtails and goldfish and stuff. He puts them under the Fluval stingrays, or the Finnex, I mean stingrays, because they have that very warm cast and they really make things glow. So I want my green plants to grow, and Twinstar has done a nice job of that generally. This one is 4,000, or not 4,000, 400 Kelvin warmer though, runs on the warm side of the spectrum, or redder side, than the last ones. They're all their other series and all their other styles. And they say that it's improved growth a lot, and flowering of plants as well, underwater flowering. But we'll see. I mean, I'll have to play with that, but that's not really what I do with my time. That's kind of a fun party trick, but I mostly don't do that. You know, I grow other plants. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for spending some time with me here, and just having a little chat about my new light and a little bit about how lights work, and what you need, what you don't need, and my opinions for whatever they're worth. I'm not saying any of this is gospel or you know, set in stone type stuff. It's just kind of my opinions on things, and for whatever it's worth. But thanks, you guys. Thank you, lurkers. Thank you, chatters. Thanks everyone for the questions. Sorry I didn't get to them all, and if they were about things other than the light subject, then I apologize. But just message me in the comments, and hopefully I can get to them, or someone will get you taken care of. All right, guys. Have a wonderful night, like I said, and thank you, mods, lurkers. I don't think we had any super chats or anything, but you know, all you members and all you great people who support the channel in all the ways you do, just by watching and everything, thank you so much. It means the world to me, and we really have a community here, and I appreciate that. And also, big thank you. Somebody sent me money on Venmo and PayPal, like $20 on each. So they said, I mean, they didn't need their name out there, kind of thing, but I want to thank them. They knew who they are, and I really appreciated that too, because then YouTube didn't get a cut of it. Just the tax man. All right, guys. Well, after all that being said, I should have a video out this week, and hopefully Thursday we'll have a video, and Tuesday we'll have Danny, or Dan rather, of Consolidated Aquatics, which is an angelfish farm out of Florida, spilling the deep dark secrets on the hobby. So yeah. All right, guys. I'll talk to you later, and also, Mary Page Flynn, if you're watching this later or whatnot, happy birthday in 36 hours or whatever it is. I'll talk to y'all later, and happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Take care. Bye.